came tonight so that none of you would be able to leave this auditorium and ever again be able to say to a physician, to a counselor, to your future husband or wife, nobody told me. I didn't know. If you have sex outside of a permanent marriage relationship, you will pay. There's a cost. No one has ever had sex outside of that context and not paid, and the question we got to ask tonight is this: what is the cost, and is it worth it? I travel all over the United States and internationally, speaking to about 250,000 teenagers a year, every year, and have learned a tremendous amount from the students that I've spoken to. Before I started speaking and traveling full time, I spent 9 years counseling in crisis pregnancy centers in Chicago and in Minneapolis, St. Paul. And for 9 years, I would have girls in my office every day saying, "Pam, I didn't know." And if somebody would have told me that this was going to be the result of the choice I was making, I'd have made a different choice. No one told me. I began to ask these girls in my office, what could we have said? What could someone have said to you before you made your choice that might have helped you to have made a better choice? And after 9 years, I realized that there were a lot of students out there making decisions about sex, having absolutely no idea what the consequence of that choice would be. It's what we're going to talk about today. I want you to understand that I didn't come today to decide for you what you're going to do about sex. That is not why I'm here. I can't make this choice for you, don't intend to. Can't go on your dates with you, I don't have time. Okay? I mean, I can't choose for you. No matter how much we would wish that we could put you in a box, lock it, feed you through a window till you're 24, we can't. All we can do is love you, tell you the truth, hope you make good choices. My goal today isn't to decide for you what you're going to do. You can do whatever you want. My goal is that none of you would be able to leave here and ever again have to say to a physician, to a counselor, to your future husband or wife, nobody told me. I didn't know. Today you're going to be told. What you choose to do when you walk out of here is up to you. I get to start today the way I can't typically start in public school settings, and that's why it's so wonderful to be in parochial schools and be able to start this way. Students, God created sex. It's awesome. It's not a terrible thing we can't talk about at Catholic school. God created sex. That's right. Now listen up. God wants you to have great sex. He does. This is not about wrecking your fun. Now listen, you guys laugh at that, and I am going to prove it to you by the end of this hour, so you have to pay very close attention, because I'm going to have to talk to you about this again. God created sex. It was His idea, not yours. But God created sex with boundaries. And when sex happens within boundaries, it's awesome. When it happens outside of boundaries, it's horribly, horribly destructive. Help me out. What is the boundary or the context for which God created sex? There's the right answer. Most of you don't believe that. You know how many church kids I've had in my office for years look at me and say, but we loved each other. So, God did not create sex for love. That is not the boundary. God created sex for one context and one only. It's permanent, lifetime commitment, marriage, not love. Students, I'm going to say out loud something that if someone would have come to my parochial school when I was in high school and said out loud to me, I would have thought one of two things about that person. Either they're crazy or they're old. I am both. Here comes the words. I'm going to say out loud what David says in the Psalms, and I believe this with all of my heart. I love the law of God. I delight in the law of God. The law of God is like honey on my lips. I love God's law. I'll tell you why I love God's law. 2 reasons. Number one is it protects. No one gets hurt. There is no disease. There is no pain. If everyone abided by the law of God, we wouldn't have trouble. Think with me about a world where I could be in a relationship with you and trust everything that came out of your mouth because no one ever lied. Think with me about a world where women weren't raped, children weren't sexually abused, couples didn't split up because they didn't love each other anymore and leave children abandoned. Think with me about a world where teenagers didn't bring guns onto their high school campuses and shoot their fellow students. We say, Pam, that world doesn't exist. That's not the real world. Yeah, that world does exist. It's called the kingdom of God. It's called heaven, where one day we will all abide by the law of God and there will be no pain. First reason is it protects. Second reason I love the law of God is this. It's simple. It's not complicated. Even the stupidest of you in here can get this. You might be able to try to say a lot of things to God someday, but you will never be able to say, well, God, it was so hard I didn't understand if you would have been a little clearer. Especially when it comes to sex. This is not hard. Either you're married or you're not. Okay? This isn't too hard. Are you married? Did you have to think about that for more than a few seconds? Easiest question you've been asked all day, right? Are you married? No? Anybody planning to get married Saturday, November the 6th? We always have a few freshman boys in the back that have to go. That's me. I'm getting married. All right, pretend with me that this Saturday, November the 6th, is your wedding day. It's this week. I got news for you. Today, Thursday, the 4th of November, listen, you are not married. Saturday, walk the aisle, say the words, exchange the rings, leave, and have at it. But today, you're not married. Anybody in here confused? Not sure whether you're married or not? Just kind of confused? Because we'd be glad to help you. Okay? Here is the rule. Here is the simple law of God. If you are not married, don't do it. If you are married, go for it with the person you're married to. Okay, I have to put that in there. Some of you get a little confused. This is not hard. I mean, you're not out on a date on Friday night going, I don't know, does he like me? He said he's really cute. My heart's pounding. The other guy said he loved me. What is it real? What should I do? Are you married? No, then don't. If you forget everything that I tell you today, and you can only remember one thing from me, this is what I want you to hear today. If you have sex outside of the sacrament of marriage, if you have sex outside of one monogamous, and monogamy does not mean one at a time, one partner who has only been with you. If you have sex outside of that context, you'll pay. There's a cost. No one has ever broken the law of God. No one has ever shaken their fist in his face and told them they could do it their way and didn't need his law and not paid. The question has got to be, what is the cost? And is it worth paying? We're going to talk about the physical and the emotional cost today. Physical cost, help me out today. What are most teens who are having sex afraid of? What's their biggest fear? Pregnancy is the biggest fear of teens having sex today. Doesn't make a bit of sense to me. I got a news flash for you. Pregnancy is not a disease. It's survivable. You can live through it. I've lived through it 3 times now, a few extra pounds here and there. It hasn't killed me yet. I'd have girls in my office for pregnancy tests, scared to death, waiting for the results of that test. I walk in, look at this girl, and say, your test is negative. She gets this look of relief over her face like I am off the hook, not pregnant. Thank you very much. Let me out of your office. Wait a minute. Have you been tested for syphilis, gonorrhea, herpes, chlamydia, trichomonas, vulvodynia, arthritis, hepatitis B, hepatitis C, HPV, HIV? Have you been tested for that? Me? You know, I live in Mission Hills. I mean, why would I need to be tested for that? This girl is in my office thinking that she could possibly be pregnant, and she doesn't think she could have a disease. Students, you have a 4 times greater risk of contracting a disease today than you ever have of being pregnant. Pregnant teenage girls in this country today are carrying, on average, 2.3 sexually transmitted diseases. Not 1, not 2, most of them 3 or more. But they weren't worried about disease. They didn't want to get pregnant. Every school I'm in, without exception, I will have a girl write me, email me, or come right up to me and say this. Well, my mom found out I was having sex, and so she put me on the pill. Or Norplant, or Depo, fill in the blank. What's that protecting that girl from? It's birth control protects you from. Pregnancy. That drug, that hormone that this girl is taking has just made her 10 times more likely to contract the disease than if she were not taking that drug. This girl's going to end up sterile or dead. Thanks, Mom. Glad you cared. Pregnancy is not the worst thing that could happen if you decide to have sex. Far worse things than that. However, over 9 years, I had to tell a lot of girls that their test was positive. Immediately, they wanted an easy, painless way out of this pregnancy they didn't plan. I have to look at this girl and say, guess what? Your choices at this point are bad, terrible, and even worse. Those are your options. You had a good choice. That was before sex. Now, all of the choices you got are going to carry consequences. Abortion is painful. I've counseled hundreds of women, 5, 10, 15 years after an abortion, still hurting. I've counseled teen girls with anorexia, bulimia, depression, suicide, because of an abortion they couldn't take back. So last summer, I had to deal with a 20-year-old girl, the most painful things I've ever seen and witnessed. Underwent an abortion at 18 weeks, dilation and an evacuation. The abortionist dilated the cervix, entered her uterus with a very sharp instrument that looks a little bit like pliers or tongs, and literally ripped the child out in pieces. In the process of performing this procedure, he perforated her uterus, grabbed a hold of part of her bowel, and yanked it right through her vagina. She was hemorrhaging. In order to stop the bleeding, they rushed her to an emergency room where they did a radical hysterectomy. This 20-year-old will never have children. Not only that, they had to do a colostomy. She's going to go to the bathroom in a bag on the outside of her body for the rest of her life. A safe, legal, little fix to a problem. No way. Abortion hurts women. Parenting is not easy. This last May, I had a 7th grader at a middle school I spoke at, 12 years old, pregnant with twins, delivered in July. It's going to be a lot of difficult years. 80% of teenage girls who choose to parent children while they're teens will live below the poverty level for at least 10 years, most of them for the rest of their lives, and 90% will never attend or graduate from college. 90%. And 10 out of 10 of those girls sat in my office and said, not me. Well, Pam, I'm going to finish high school, work full-time, go to college, be a doctor. Life happens to most of these girls. The number one indicator of poverty in this nation's students has nothing to do with race or where you live. The number one indicator of poverty in our country today is single-parent households in the age of that young girl when she began parenting alone. Serious responsibility, girls. Guys, in case you've all fallen asleep now, because we're talking about pregnancy and this does not involve you. Young men, you get a girl pregnant in the lovely state of California or any other state in this nation whom you are not legally married to. Not who you like a whole lot, okay? But a girl who you're not married to. Guys, you need to understand that you have absolutely no legal right to the choice she makes. This girl can do whatever she wants. You have no say. And suing her for stealing your sperm might prove a bit difficult. Try. If, however, guys, this girl decides to parent your child, you now have legal responsibility. It's costing us about $30 billion a year to support teenage girls parenting their children. We can't pay this bill. Over the last few years, we've undergone welfare reform. Guys, the laws have all changed. I don't care what your cousin, your uncle, your nephew got away with. It's not happening for you. We are now requiring in all 50 states the Social Security numbers of both parents on every birth certificate of every child born in this country. Girls will no longer be allowed to say, I don't know who the dad is. I don't feel like naming him. We will have your Social Security number on the birth certificate. Guys, if you are named as the father of a child, you'll be notified by your county. County's going to send you a little note saying you've been named as the father of this child, born to this girl, on this date. You will have between 60 and 120 days to show up at your county and say, it's not me. You see, pulled my name out of a hat. I do not know that girl. That is not my kid. They'll do a blood test. If the blood test, in fact, proves that you are not the biological father, they're going to go back to mom and say, sorry, try again. So we have somebody's Social Security number on that birth certificate. Why did we change the law, guys? Why do we want that number? So we can let you know when your kid starts kindergarten? Send you a nice little note? Money is what we're after, guys. It's going to cost you over the next 18 years between $60,000 and $80,000, and your pay will be garnished. If you are not working, you will incur debt. And when and if you ever do get a job, it's coming out of your paycheck. This is a serious responsibility, young men. Better think about that before you have sex. After, if you're not married, is too late. Key word there is marriage. If you're married, you've got all the choices in the world. If you're not, you don't. Third option a young girl has if she finds herself pregnant, which I happen to think is one of the more positive options available to girls today, but not without pain. It's going to carry consequences. It's adoption. The ability of a young girl to To take the child she's carried with her for 9 months and loves with everything she is. To say, I want what's best for my child, and I'm not it. And I am willing to go through this pain to give my child a family. It takes a lot of courage, a lot of maturity, and a lot of love. 2 million requests for adoption will go unanswered every year in this nation. Girls, please hear this. This is primarily going to affect you. Infertility, the inability to have children of your own biologically, has risen over 500% in the last 8 years, in the 90s alone. In fact, we are now spending $4 billion a year on fertility treatment, and we have had more multiple births in the 90s because of fertility drugs than in the entire history of our nation up to this day. We've got so many more couples who can't have children and no infants available. Average adoption now takes between 8 and 10 years and costs between $10,000 and $20,000. It takes a lot of love for a girl to give her child a family and to give that couple the privilege of being parents. 34 years ago in Michigan, a young 15-year-old became pregnant. She had a lot of difficult choices to make, maybe more so than some young girls. She was raped. Abortion was legal in the 60s for rape. But this young girl chose to give her child life and then to place that child with an adoptive family. And that child was me. My biological father is a rapist. I don't even know my nationality. But I am still a human being. And I still have value. And my life isn't worth any less than any of yours just because of the way I was conceived. And I did not deserve the death penalty because of the crime of my father. And I've listened to the rhetoric all my life. And I've listened to people say, well, every child should be wanted and planned. Well, I wouldn't have an abortion. That's terrible. But if it were rape, well, then you're a mistake, Pam. I don't believe that. I believe that every child is wanted by someone. And I believe that God, in His mercy, had a plan for me. And I can't explain it to you. And you can't explain it to me. And I've asked all the hard questions. Don't think I haven't. Did God plan me? Did God plan rape? Because I don't know if I'd serve a God that did that. Did God look down that night in November of 1964 and say, oops, what am I going to do with that? I don't know. But let me tell you something I do know, students. I know that my God is so awesome and so amazing that He is capable of taking your worst pain, whether it was something that you chose or whether it was something that was done to you. And my God can make something very beautiful come from that. It's called amazing grace. The ability of God to take even the pain in our lives, the ashes of our lives, and make something good come from that. I don't know how and I don't know why. I just know He can. I've not met my birth mom. Someday I hope to. If I don't meet her here on earth, I'm going to meet her in heaven. I've been praying for her since I was 4 years old. And when we meet, I'm going to wrap my arms around her and I'm going to tell her I love her because she loved me. Loved me enough to give me my life. And then loved me enough to give me the next most special gift I was ever given. And that's my family. Since I wouldn't want any of you sitting in this room to ever have to make a choice like this. I've spent 9 years of my life walking girls through these choices. There is no easy way out. The best choice is before you have sex. After that, it's going to get really tough. But please hear me today. If someone you care about, were to find yourselves pregnant you didn't intend to be, please get some help. Please don't walk through this alone. Crisis Pregnancy Center should be close to you. Where you can find it, the best way to do that is to look under your yellow pages, under abortion alternatives or pregnancy counseling. Look under the listings, find out who is doing the counseling, give them a call, and get some help. Don't walk through this alone. Pregnancy is survivable, though. We can live through that. I could walk you through that. That is not the worst thing that could happen if you decide to have sex today. Far worse things than that. Today, November 4th, today, in the next 24 hours, 12,000 teens will contract a sexually transmitted disease. Today. 12,000 more tomorrow. 12,000 teens who got up this morning and said, like some of you sitting in this room, that's not going to happen to me. Fam, that happens in Los Angeles and San Diego and San Francisco and Sacramento and scary schools like St. Paul. But we're okay here at Alamany because it doesn't happen here. You're wrong. Since in the 1950s, we had 5 sexually transmitted diseases we knew about were treated. 5. You could count them on one hand. Go find a grandparent. Go find someone who grew up in the 40s and 50s. Ask them. Were there STDs when you were a kid? I mean, did people have them? Talk about at school? Have classes? Have wellness day? Oh, yeah, sure. There were sexually transmitted diseases. Got a shot of penicillin, moved on. It's a new world. Today we've got over 30 sexually transmitted diseases. 30% of them absolutely incurable. That means you get one of these diseases and you've got it for life. Which is a lovely thing, guys, when you're getting ready to get married. Found this girl you love. I mean, this is it. She's the one you want to spend your life with. All those other girls, that was just messing around. This is the real thing. Pull out that diamond, look her in the eyes. If you're really cool, young men, you'll get on your knees. And you say, marry me. By the way, I've got genital warts. You'll get it too. And we'll both be treated for the rest of our lives. In fact, you'll probably end up with a radical hysterectomy, cervical cancer, and possibly death. But marry me. Well, I'm excited now. Thank you for sharing. Isn't that what you want to tell your spouse? Lovely. HPV, genital warts, syphilis, gonorrhea, herpes, chlamydia, trichomonas, vulvodynia, arthritis, hepatitis B, hepatitis C, HIV, list goes on and on and on. These are serious diseases, students, with serious consequences. Please hear me this morning. AIDS is not the only disease out there, and it is certainly not the only disease that's killing people. And yet we still have teens who actually think, well, if I don't get pregnant or I don't get AIDS, well, then I don't have anything to worry about. No way. No way. I was speaking in Ohio and got about 185 emails in September from a bunch of people telling me I needed to watch ABC. Because ABC was going to do a little special about sex, and we all know what a fountain of truth the media is. And I thought, well, before I bash ABC about their little program, I should probably watch it. If you caught this show, they called their little educational program Sex with Cindy Crawford. Hour-long little program to educate us all. So, all right, ABC, you got an hour. 60 minutes minus a few commercials. You will mention, I'm not even asking you to explain, okay? Mention one other disease besides AIDS. Did they? Yeah. There wasn't a word. What a tragedy for women. I could not believe it. Chlamydia, one of the most common diseases among teens today, is chlamydia. This is a bacteria, not a virus, easily treated and cured. 2 classes of sexually transmitted disease. If you haven't had biology yet, this will help you. Okay, 2 types of STDs, bacterial and viral. A bacterial disease is curable. If we knew you had it, we could help you. Antibiotics can wipe that out. A virus is not. You get a virus, you've got it for life. There is no cure. We have never in the history of the world cured a virus, okay? Chlamydia is not a virus. It's a bacteria, curable. So what's the big deal? I'll tell you what the big deal is. And over 90% of teenagers who have chlamydia, there are no symptoms. You can't treat a disease you don't know you have. We got all kinds of teenagers out there having sex going, well, it's not bothering me. I mean, I've had sex, but I don't have a disease. Never been tested, certainly not in the last 2 months. But I know I don't. How in the world would you know that? Let me tell you something pretty safe to say I know about you. If you're sitting in this room and you are sexually active or have had sex, let me tell you something pretty safe to say I know about you. It's true of teens all over the world. You actually believe that if you get up the next morning and herpes isn't tattooed to your forehead, you don't have a disease. I mean, if I can't see it, feel it, or touch it, I don't have it. If I had a disease, I would know. My nose would turn purple, my ears would be red, something would burn. I would know. No, you wouldn't. If I asked you what the pregnancy rate was at your high school, you could probably tell me. We had 8 girls get pregnant last year. There were 7 girls at our school. We've got the highest pregnancy rate. But I don't know anybody at my high school who's got a disease. Really? First of all, your friends aren't getting tested. And even if they were, do you think they would tell you? Went to the doctor Monday, found out I had herpes. Tell everybody by 5th hour. I would like for the entire school to know. You think I'm going to tell you? There's no way. So you think walking down the halls you're going to see it? Oh, purple nose, herpes, stay away from that. Oh, am I going to do that? So you think as you can't see it, feel it, or touch it, or know anyone with it, it doesn't happen. It doesn't work that way. The American Medical Association released a bulletin about a year ago. They said this: every teenage girl who has had sex or is sexually active has to be tested for chlamydia every 6 months. Every teenage girl who has had sex has got to be tested for chlamydia every 6 months. Cindy Crawford didn't have a few seconds to mention that? Couldn't fit that into her little schedule? Why did the AMA say girls? Why didn't they say every teenager having sex should be tested for chlamydia? Don't guys get this? Of course they do. Who in the world do you think you're getting it from, girls? Guys and girls both get this, so why would they say just girls? I'll tell you. Girls, listen up. Girls, you contract chlamydia one time in your lifetime, cured or not, and there is a 25% chance you will be sterile for the rest of your life. Contract this disease twice, girls, it jumps to 50%. Contract it 3 times, and there's a really good chance you will never have children. We've got women in their 20s, early 30s saying, I'd like to start my family now. I'm married, like to have a child. They try, can't get pregnant. They go running to an infertility specialist. He checks and says, my goodness, you've got all this scar tissue in your fallopian tubes, your ovaries, your uterus. You have pelvic inflammatory disease, PID. You had chlamydia or gonorrhea. What? What in the world did I have? How could I have had that disease? I didn't even know. It's too late, girls. Girls, I'm begging you to hear this morning. Please hear me. That guy can break up with you, leave you, meet another girl, marry her, and have a family. This is not going to hurt him. You're scarred for life. You have more to lose, girls. Please don't miss this. I am so sorry. Life is not fair. There is no even score here. Girls, you are going to pay a higher price physically every single time. In case you missed this in 6th grade human reproduction and anatomy, we're different. Boys' and girls' bodies are not the same. Some of you are looking confused. That's scaring me. Thought that was safe by now. Girls, you all have an open sexual system. The guys sitting in this room all have closed sexual systems. Girls, you are easier to infect and easier to damage on a permanent basis. It's the way you're made. Girls, you have to release an egg from an ovary. It has to make its way through a fallopian tube that cannot be scarred in any way. If that takes place and conception takes place, this conceived egg now has to attach itself to your uterine wall. There can be no infection or scarring of your uterus. If it's able to receive the nutrients it needs, baby grows for 9 months, you deliver. He produces sperm. Big deal. Not that hard. Girls, your system is just a little more complicated. It's the way you're made. Now the guys are ticked. I can see you. Well, that's tough. Well, if you think that's so easy, you just try that then. See, they let a woman speaker come in and talk about sex, and she's just dissing men. What's wrong with you? Some kind of feminazi or something? Don't you like men? I like men. I married one. I have 2 boys. And I'm going to say something really nice about a lot of the young men sitting in this room, so I don't want any guys with selective hearing. Okay, you got to pay attention to the whole thing, not just a little part. Girls, I've traveled this country. I've been in towns, cities, and schools all over this nation and around the world. And girls, in every school I've been in, and Alamania is no different, sitting in this room are young men of integrity, guys with character, girls, guys who do care about you. Girls, the kind of guy, if you were to date him, would look at you and say, I do love you, and you matter. And you know what? I might be able to walk away from sex with you without permanent damage. But you might not. And I love you so much. You matter so much that I would never ask you to put your life on the line to meet my momentary need. I would never pressure, demand sex, dump you if you wouldn't sleep with me. I care too much for you for that. There are guys with that kind of integrity, girls. I married one. Unfortunately, as a small word of warning, there are some guys who don't care. As long as they don't get hurt in the long run, they're going to say all the words. I love you. Well, everybody else is doing it. I can't live with it. If you won't, she will. I'll die. You're not going to die. Nothing will fall off. You will live. Real love respects. Love doesn't pressure, damage, hurt, take, and walk. It's not love. It's selfishness. Kids ask me everywhere I go, well, Pam, how do I know if it's love? How do I know if this person loves me? They said it. My heart's pounding. They're really, how would I know if it's really love? There's only one way you will ever know if it's love. Put a boundary down. Say this far and no further and watch for respect.